What's up, marketers? In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how I would build out a Meta Ads account in 2024. Now, I have made several of these videos in the past. You guys love them, but a lot has changed in 2024. Like, I don't use retargeting campaigns anymore. Seriously, tofu, mofu, and bofu, over. And lookalikes and interest targeting is largely a waste of time for almost all brands. And dare I say, advantage plus shopping. Now, what I'm going to be guiding you on today is the core campaign structure I use for almost every single brand that I'm working with. Your actual structure is going to depend on a multitude of factors, like the number of products or SKUs you have, your budget, and candidly, your overall strategy. In fact, I want to show you something before we get started. Before making this video, I actually hopped into 10 brands' live ad accounts and analyzed their monthly budgets, the number of campaigns they had live, and whether or not they were using retargeting and ASC campaigns. I'm going to refer back to this table a lot in this video, but suffice it to say that the big trends were that nearly every single brand was using Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, and rarely any of them were using retargeting campaigns. And that choice had almost nothing to do with their budget. Big disclaimer, of course, I don't agree with all the choices that all the brands are making inside of these ad accounts, but I thought it would be really valuable data for you guys to have while you're trying to weigh what your account structure should actually look like in 2024. Now, before we hop into Ads Manager and actually look at the account build out, I want to go over some pre-build prep. These things are super important for you to iron out before you actually start building your campaigns, and it's everything that we'll be covering in today's video. Now, the first thing we're going to go through is the core Meta Ads account structure. We're going to go through your campaign types, an overview on testing, and of course, peek inside of each of those campaigns so you can see exactly how they're set up. I'm also going to go over budget. Here, we're going to be looking really closely at that table and see how your budget could actually affect the end result of what your campaign or your account structure actually looks like. And I want to touch on low budgets and of course your testing budget. And finally, of course, I want to address which creatives you need to be testing in 2024. So let's go ahead and dive into that Meta Ads campaign structure. So as you can see right here, we have 2 campaigns live. Yes. 2 campaigns is the new core account structure for Meta Ads. And you can see here, we have a creative testing campaign. This is going to be a business as usual conversion or sales to purchase campaign. This is the campaign that is going to house all of the creative tests that you're conducting. And the way that I like to conduct creative tests is using ad set budgeting. For every single creative test, we're actually going to be launching that in a net new ad set and giving it its own budget to make sure that we are actually getting learnings from every single creative test that we're running. Now, let's go back here for a second. You can also see we have an Advantage Plus shopping campaign, and that's it. Yeah, for real, there's no retargeting here, and there's a very good reason for that. The reason why is because the Advantage Plus shopping campaign honestly acts like a retargeting campaign, especially when you first launch it. Meta has even said that the Advantage Plus shopping campaigns work on a spectrum of intent. And initially, they are actually targeting people that have an explicit interest in your product and business. And by explicit interest, this means that these people have indicated that they have an interest in you and your business. So these are people that are already being tracked on your pixel, that are already interacting with you on social media. So these are, by all intents and purposes, retargeting audiences. And as you begin to let your ASC campaign grow in budget and also just keeping it on longer, that is when the spectrum of intent is going to move from explicit to implicit. So as you continue getting more data through that campaign, that's when it actually starts to shift to more colder audiences. But as it stands, especially when you first launch it, and in my experience, even the longer you run it, it does tend to over-index more on retargeting audiences. So there's no reason for, as long as you have an ASC campaign, to have retargeting campaigns. Now, one other fundamental thing that you need to understand when building out your core Meta Ads account structure is this. You do not need to create a Facebook ads funnel to be successful. In fact, this is probably going to waste a ton of money, especially if you are in direct consumer or e-commerce. And the reason why is because consolidation really does tend to yield the best results. And what's interesting actually about that table that I showed you earlier, none of those brands were using traffic or engagement or brand awareness campaigns. None of them. Even the ones that started off by just spending $5K per month. None of them are using those to create a funnel. Another common question that I get about this campaign structure is, okay, why do I separate my creative testing from Advantage Plus? Can't I just put my new creatives into the Advantage Plus campaigns? So I want to address that question head on. Number one, you are guaranteed by getting learnings in a certain amount of time if you push budget to the creative tests when you have them isolated in ABO. Sometimes in Advantage Plus, you're not actually going to get budget, or it's going to take a long time to get budget, so you're not going to have those learnings. And for many brands to continue to know what type of creative they need to make next, they need to get those learnings a lot quicker. Also, I find that having the creative testing campaign and isolating the creative tests, it makes having the creative learnings and the data a lot easier to synthesize and analyze and go over. Also, I find that it's a really nice way to begin scaling, because the idea in 2024 is that your creative does the targeting. So if you are able to isolate your creatives, and if you find winners, you can continue to increase the budget in your creative testing campaign while also then taking that ad creative, that one, putting it into your ASC campaign. The ASC campaign kind of becomes like a super campaign that's taking all your best creatives and is putting them out there to the mass market, or in retargeting, right? But you're able to do horizontal scaling and also continuing to get the great results coming from the creative testing campaign still. So you're not throwing anything out that's working. If you want to go into my exact methodology on creative testing, I do have a new video that I just recently launched right here that goes over every single thing in the creative testing campaign and how I'm building out those methodologies. Now, some notes on the Advantage Plus campaign. Number one, this tends to work best with the top performing creatives. So I don't find that it's actually really effective for doing creative testing. And really, if you find that an ad creative is performing well in your creative testing campaign, you duplicate the ad, not the ad set, into Advantage Plus. And I found more recently too that the more options you have in your Advantage Plus campaign, the better it tends to perform. So even if something doesn't look like it's getting as much traction, just go ahead and leave it on and allow the algorithm to optimize. Really, I just like to optimize based on the budget instead of turning on and off ad creative, unless an ad creative is really starting to get a CPA that's way too high and it's not worth it. Otherwise, I just kind of like to let it rock. Now, as it stands, this simple campaign structure, you can actually see when I used to make this video where I had the retargeting and the scaling campaigns. I don't really have those anymore for the most part, but this core campaign is really all that you need to get started. So now let's talk about budgets and when and why you might end up adding new campaigns beyond this core structure. So the first thing that I want to address right now are smaller budgets. Even if you have a small budget, like $3,000 to $5,000 a month, should you still use both a testing campaign and an Advantage Plus shopping campaign? If absolute efficiency is your number one goal, say you're a small mom and pop shop and you just want to give Facebook ads a try, do you really need to go through the hassle of having a creative testing campaign? I would actually say go ahead and start by launching the Advantage Plus shopping campaign only and go from there. In fact, one of the brands that I took a look at before this, they have one campaign that is an ASC campaign. And interestingly enough, these are DPA catalog ads only. And what's really great about this is they're getting amazing results from this. And it's not really subjected to creative fatigue, and it requires almost no maintenance on their part, because as they start adding more products to the catalog, they don't actually have to create new ads on Facebook Ads Manager, which is awesome. So if I was launching a new ad account for my own brand, I'd actually first start with an ASC campaign, maybe test out a few different formats in there to get some learnings and to get some traction. And then as I started to increase my budgets and increase the amount of creatives that I was testing, especially if I'm testing a new creative, I'd say every week or every other week, that's then when I would start to have the ABO campaign and start creative testing with a new ad set every time I want to test a new concept. Now, the reason why I am a little nervous to tell people just go all ASC is I have found them to be pretty volatile, especially in the day-to-day performance. Sometimes the CPAs will be amazing for a few days in a row, and then we'll have a huge CPA spike for a day or two. And on the other hand, the more business as usual campaigns or the creative testing campaigns, those can often be a lot more steady and consistent. But of course, this depends brand to brand. Now, I want to take another look back at this table and look at why many of these brands have more than two campaigns. campaigns, right? Because you're probably looking at that and you're confused and you want to make sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. Now, number one, several of these brands have legacy campaigns that have continued to perform. So there's no reason to turn them off, right? So maybe they have an old creative testing campaign that's still rocking. They have an old scaling campaign that's still doing really well for them. There's no reason to turn anything off if something is working, even if it falls out of best practices. Additionally, some of the brands that have higher budgets are also working with several different creative agencies, and those creative agencies have their own testing campaigns. Now, this isn't really a best practice or a rule of thumb. In fact, some of the brands that I work with that spend $1 million+ per month, they actually have all of their partners testing creative in the same creative testing campaign. It's honestly more or less a decision that's up to the brand and the agency, and I don't see too many performance fluctuations. I personally like to keep them all in one creative testing campaign because it's a lot easier for me to synthesize data based on what's a creative test, what's business as usual, or top performing, and then I can build out more detailed reports in motion based on that. Some of these brands too are testing different bidding options like bid caps or cost caps. I don't really have a POV on that one, to be honest. Everybody else does on Twitter. If you're curious about that, just, put up the flag and I'm sure someone will answer you. A few of these brands too also have different ASC campaigns for different products, like this apparel brand, for instance. And for what it's worth, this brand also has a completely separate ASC campaign for DPA ads, which I see becoming more and more popular. But again, for the most part, at the core and also where the brands are spending the most money tends to be in the consolidated top performing ASC campaigns and their creative testing campaigns. All of the other campaigns that they have are lower spenders. It's things that they're testing out, or it's legacy campaigns that have been doing well for them for a long time. Now, the final thing I want to talk about are the creatives that all brands should be testing. So if you decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and create this campaign structure, what type of creatives should I go ahead and start launching then in the creative testing campaign? And these are great for low budgets too. So something like a features point out ad. This is something that, is really going to be able to target people who already have a specific interest in your product. But it's a great way to highlight, hey, this is why my product is potentially better than a competitor product. I also really like having quotations or golden nugget reviews at the top of these. I found that actually does a lot to increase conversion rates. Another really common ad format that I see great traction coming out of, especially for new brands. This is oftentimes the first creative winner I see come out for new brands, especially low budget brands, are the us versus them ads. Very, very traditional type of creative, but it's something that I consider a must test. And something to consider too is, especially with new brands, I find them to be really nervous about testing this type of ad creative because they feel like they're talking down on other brands. Don't look at it that way. You can talk about a more general type of them instead of calling out a specific competitor. It's really just showing why your product is better than the others or better than the other options out there. So I really wish people would reframe their mind on that ad creative because I'm tired of answering that question. Another really easy one, cheap as hell to make, are ugly ads. You've seen them everywhere. You maybe even converted on one of these ads. These are ad creatives that, heck, I even had a client make last week and it ended up working really well for them. So it's still rocking in 2024. And different types of UGC ads are going to be performing really well too. Let's take a look. In my creative testing video, I actually gave 8 creative tests I would go ahead and start off with right here. Features point out us versus them, before and afters. Another big thing I always hear from people too is, before and after ads aren't allowed on Facebook ads in 2024. This is a myth. This is a myth. This is a myth. Facebook actually has a guide on how to do it. But what you can't do, right, is show before and afters of idealized results. So what they are going to dock you on is like if you do like a big photo shoot and it looks like you were manufacturing the after image, right? So that's why you have to use UGC or UGC style creators to actually show those before and afters and make sure that you're not manufacturing or doctoring those images. And you can't really use it for weight loss or cosmetic procedures. There's a little bit of flexibility around there. And you also don't have to use the words before and after. Sometimes that gets flagged, but if you appeal it, oftentimes it'll go through. But yeah, just, the more you know. UGC problem solution style ads. This is like the bread and butter of UGC. Definitely give those a try. Founder stories, really easy to create and great if you're a founder working on a low budget, all you got to do is open up your phone and honestly just tell your story of why you created the brand and what your product is about. I often find that founders ads work really well because the founder is often the most connected to the why someone should buy it. Maybe they have a really personal story. Then we have testimonial statics, statistic statics, and then there are those ugly ads. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, or if you liked actually me showing this data table, let me know. This is definitely something that I'm testing out with my content, and I'd love to hear feedback from you guys on that. All right, I will see you next week. Bye.